So I'm halfway through my webcomic Seeking Scars, and being at this halfway point has made me realize a lot of what I thought it would feel like to be here when I first started was pretty off. I'm about 120 pages into Seeking Scars, and I have about that much to go still. I started making these pages in August of last year and then started uploading the pages in February of this year, so 2025. That's like a pretty sizable amount of time, like I think about 6 months between starting the pages and starting to share them. And then obviously now we're in October 2025, so it's been over a year since I've started this whole process. There's been a lot of ups and downs in this process, as you might imagine, and a lot of the hurdles and successes and things that I've experienced are the typical things that you would expect, but a lot of it also isn't. I've experienced things and learned things that I really didn't even consider at the start of this, and that's what this video is. I want to share them with you. Really quickly also, I want to thank you guys for over 1,000 subscribers. I was not expecting that first video to do so well, and I'm so glad and so grateful. I'm so happy that, it's resonated and made sense. So yeah, thank you for being here. Also, thank you to my patrons. I love you. So I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna concede that it's fun and it's great and it's so exciting when you first start your project. It's terrifying too, but it's very exciting. You have all this hope and an ambition, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna finally start. I'm gonna finally do it. And then when you sit down to do it, you're like, okay, this is hard, but like I got the energy. I'm there. Like you're scripting your first few pages, you're setting everything up, and it's going. And then you realize you have to do this like so many more times, and you might have to do this every day, every week, every month, for like the foreseeable future, depending on how long your project is. And that can definitely get you down. There's a concept that I've been hearing about lately and that I've been personally experiencing, and I will make a separate video on it eventually because I think it deserves its own. But the concept of having that initial momentum when you start and then experiencing the dip, that's very real. It's gonna happen. You're gonna lose momentum, you're gonna lose steam, and you're gonna be like, damn, I don't wanna do this forever, even if you do really wanna tell your story. This is why, when you're first starting out, if this is your first ever project, you wanna make it as short as possible. And you also want to make it as easy as possible on yourself. Even though you don't have to finish every single project you start, it's better to have more finished projects under your belt than it is to have unfinished or especially unshared works. So if this is your first project ever, 100% make it as short as possible. If you do have this like grand plot that you've been writing since you were 12, because everybody does, I do, that's great. Pick a very small part of it. Do like something that's like at most 20 pages. Honestly, do 5 pages. See how you feel. Do like a little short scene. Then maybe upgrade to 10 pages and then 20 and build yourself up. So basically start small as you can. The smaller you start, the easier it'll be to finish. Once you have one finished little project, you're gonna feel way more confident and way more comfortable starting something a little bit bigger. And eventually you'll reach the point where you can tackle the big project you want to make. But here's the thing that helped me the most, and I kind of had to learn this the hard way in a sense. When you're setting out to create a project that will last more than like a week, let's say, you want to build yourself a routine to ensure that you're going to actually work on it. And the best way to figure out what your process and routine is going to be is to know yourself. You have to know under what conditions you best work under. Like, are you the kind of person that works better with a strict schedule? Or are you the kind of person that feels like a strict schedule or a schedule at all is very limiting and restrictive and stressful? If you're not sure what will work best for you and you're at the very start of your journey, it'll take some trial and error, and it's good to experiment with different kinds of, systems. The knowing yourself and understanding and respecting yourself is the most important part of this to me, because it'll stop you from beating yourself up. You really don't want to do that. You don't want to force yourself to be productive, but you do want to push yourself. It's a very fine line. There's like a balance between nudging yourself to work and sticking to your commitments and being determined versus beating yourself up like, why didn't you do this today? You were scheduled to do this and you were too tired, but you gotta work anyway. That's not good. That's not helpful. What's really awesome about being creative and being an artist is that everybody works differently and you can work differently. We're not clocking into a 9 to 5 here. And this goes for literally everything about this creative process. There's no right or wrong way to do things. There's just a healthy and unhealthy way. There's a productive and destructive way. But for the most part, do whatever you want to do as long as it gets you there. Me personally, I have to wake up early and I have to have my schedule, and I sit and I work until a certain time, and then after that time I'm done. That's what my schedule is like on my days off, and I organized it in that way because I know that after like about 3 p.m. I just lose any kind of momentum that I could possibly have to be productive, no matter what time I wake up. On days that I go to work, I usually get home at around that time, so that's probably why my brain likes to turn off at that time. But I used to leave work days for just resting and taking care of like housework and stuff. Now I'm able to be more attentive on those days. I've noticed my energy has gotten better, and so I usually leave some small things that I can do very quickly. Like I'll do quick sketches, I'll study, I'll like update my Patreon, I'll respond to emails and stuff like that. Nothing big, because I know that if I tell myself you have to finish XYZ pages on Monday, it's just not going to happen. That works for me personally. You have your own way of doing it, but plan it in such a way where you're not fighting yourself. You want to work with yourself. If you get home from work or school and you're exhausted and you know you're not going to be able to do anything, don't expect yourself to like bust out 10 pages after school. See if you can maybe work more on the weekend on your project and leave the school days or work days for resting or planning other things. Again, it's so very important that you make this as easy as possible for yourself. Another part to this is having a dedicated area for working. I know that's not always possible. I've worked on my bed for most of my life. It's not great, but if it's what you got, it's what you got. It's important to have your sketchbook or your laptop or whatever you need readily available so that it's not a hassle for you to like get home and have to get everything out. Oh, but I gotta do this and then I gotta do that before I start working. It's gonna make sitting down to work more of a drag. Again, you want this to be so easy. Anyway, this part has gone on for way too long. I think you guys get kind of what I'm saying. If you don't, let me know, and I don't know. I'll explain myself better in the comments, I guess. This part surprised me the most. I was not expecting this to be so much the case when I started my comic. If you're someone who watched my last video and really related to the part about over planning your project to the point of detriment, where I talk about how I spent 2 years planning and working on a project that I never actually started, this is going to be a tough one. The need for control when you start working on a project is what leads you to overplan. It's the desire to make your project perfect that leads to that, and the idea that your story and your project as a whole can run away from you and change as you make it is terrifying, because what if it gets worse? What if you lose the plot? It can happen, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm a perfectionist, and so this is hard for me even still, but your story will run away from you and change as you make it. Your art style will evolve in ways you didn't foresee, and you'll end up with something that you didn't exactly have in your mind when you first started. Using my own comic as an example, when I first began writing Seeking Scars, my goal was to show Seth as authentically as I could. He's a character who's very mean and sarcastic and prioritizes his own survival and self-preservation above all else. These are all traits that, truthfully, I believe that I had in my past, and exploring Seth as a character, I feel like I'm exploring myself, and deep down, that is the goal that I had for this comic. Which is why when I started writing Act 1, and he turned out to be a lot more sad and nervous and afraid than I had originally planned for him to be, it was eye-opening and very interesting, not just for the personal aspect of it, but for the narrative opportunities it presented to me. And though originally the plan was for me to show him as authentically as possible, so that there was a dissonance between what he was saying had happened and what had actually happened and how he acted, Act 1 turned out better for this because it showed the disconnect he has within himself, the denial he feels about what happened in his past, about what he did with his friends, about who he is. For a bit, I was afraid of misrepresenting Seth to the audience, and then I realized that's exactly what I should be doing in a story like this. It's a bit of an unreliable narrator kind of thing. You can't control every bit of your story all the time, and as you make it, you'll get better ideas and things will kind of be perceived differently from how you expect, and it's a whole transformative experience. And trying to overplan and overcorrect and stick too harshly to an outline robs you of that. What I've learned now that I'm about halfway through my comic is to embrace the ability to change and adapt the story as I go. It's not only normal and frankly inevitable, but it's good because things grow and transform as they go, and the last thing you want to do is limit yourself. What I think could be more helpful is to have more of a through line for your story and kind of a goal. What are you trying to achieve with this story? What are you trying to say both to yourself and to your audience? That doesn't necessarily mean that your project has to have a big moral or something like that. I just mean you have to kind of give yourself guidelines, but give yourself wiggle room. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm about like 120 pages into Seeking Scars, and I just finished the outline like this week. I finally have finished writing the story of Seeking Scars. A guideline for it. It can still change, but it's been over a year now that I've been working on this, and I had the ending, like the actual like scene, the ending scene, and I knew the direction I was going in, but I didn't have the middle part completely figured out up until now. And that's okay. I don't think you'd be able to notice it in my story. And if you can, that's fine too, because I am still just learning. Everybody is. It was hard for me to realize this at the beginning when I was first starting out, and especially when I was working on my last project that I never even started, where I thought I needed to have literally everything figured out before I started. You don't. You can kind of figure it out as you go. There is a form of writing called discovery writing that is just this. You go in with an idea and you figure the story out as you write. Someone very famous for this is Stephen King. He doesn't sit and plan and outline. He just gets an idea and starts writing it, and if it's bad, and he moves on. If this is something you think could work for you, by all means, jump in. I'm someone who kind of needs more of a guideline, so I'll give myself like an outline in the form of bullet points for the most part, like scene by scene kind of a thing, and I'll change that as I go, and that's how I've been writing Seeking Scars. But discovery writing, I feel, is super underrated and super freeing. So essentially, don't be afraid of letting your story change as you make it. It'll grow with you. Now, I kind of want to talk about something a little bit outside of the storytelling and artistic process, and more so about audience reaction and social media and stuff like that as a whole. Think of a number that you would dream to get in terms of subscribers or comments or likes on your webcomic. Maybe you're hoping to get at least one person to read your comic. Maybe you're hoping for 20, 50, 100, 1,000, multiple thousands. Okay, well, imagine actually reaching that number. You'd think you'd be stoked, like, oh my god, people are actually reading my stuff? This is crazy. You'll think like, oh, well, once I have 1,000 subscribers, I'll probably also have like a ton of commissions and a ton of followers on like Instagram and Twitter. I would have made it at that point. Maybe some of those things will happen, and maybe, probably, you'll feel at least a little excited. Yeah, but it's also very likely that you reach that number and you don't feel anything at all, because the worst thing is that it really is just a number. I know you're probably disagreeing with me right now, and I am kind of speaking from a point of privilege in the sense that I do have pretty good viewership on my comic, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But trust me when I say that I constantly feel like nobody's reading my comic at all. I know it's objectively not true. I know you guys are reading it, but it, to me, feels like no one is. Every single day, I feel the urge to quit. Every single day, I feel like if I did quit, nobody would care. But I have over 3,000 subscribers. So why do I still feel this way? Well, it's all a matter of perspective, and the numbers don't actually change any of that. If you go into something like this with the goal of getting a big audience, whether that's subscribers or likes or whatever, you will end up either disappointed, or if you do achieve that goal of 100 or 1,000 subscribers, you're not going to feel satisfied. Because by the time that you reach that big goal of an audience, you're going to want an even bigger audience. You're going to reach 1,000 hoping you reach 10,000, and it's never going to feel enough. What I'm trying to say is, you shouldn't measure the worth of your work or your own worth based on whatever number you're hoping to achieve. And don't place so much value in those numbers. When I started posting Seeking Scars, I convinced myself nobody would read it, so that if nobody did read it, it wouldn't hurt. It is crushing when nobody looks at your work. When you put so much effort and time into something and nobody reads it, or it gets no subscribers, no comments, it's crushing. And we live in an age where it really does feel like getting likes and getting subscribers and followers and everything is the point. And I know you're probably listening to me right now and like rolling your eyes because, like, oh, obviously easy for you to say that like shouldn't matter when you have thousands of subscribers on your comic. And that's true. But I also have other comics I've posted before that nobody ever fucking read. And that's okay. I'm at the point in my artistic career where I am now, where I have a comic that I'm working on that has a readership that I'm so thankful for. And you guys are watching my YouTube videos, which again, I'm so thankful for. But I didn't get here overnight. I've been doing this for all of my life. I'm 27 years old and I started this when I was like 12. I've failed at 4 other comics before. One day I'll show them to you. Again, my point is I did think that if I made it big with Seeking Scars that I would be in a completely different place than I am right now. And I'm not. I still feel just as insecure. Making the comic saved me from quitting art, but getting success from it in terms of subscribers and followers didn't do a whole lot for my insecurities. And I also don't want to sit here and be like, oh, it doesn't matter, because of course it does. I wouldn't be here making this video probably if you guys hadn't given me so much love on the first one. Or maybe I would be. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that I also learned that while making my comic, getting attention and getting recognition didn't solve all the insecurities I have. You're still gonna struggle and you're still gonna have a hard time making the comic. You're still gonna hate your art. You're still gonna hate your writing. It's gonna be hard. It's always gonna be an uphill battle, but you do it anyway because you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your ideas. You owe it to your characters to let them exist and let them breathe. And yes, a lot of the process is going to suck and be hard and be painful, but there is enjoyment in that. There is fulfillment in that. That at the end of the day, you can look back and see that you made your project. Even if you didn't finish it, you made a portion of it and that you grew in that time. I feel like there's a bit of a theme manifesting with my videos so far where I'm essentially at the end of the day just on my knees begging you to work on your stuff. And I really am. Please make your comic. Please make your story, your OC universe, or your music, or your novels, whatever it is that you're wanting to make, please make it, because it's only gonna benefit you, even if you don't finish it, and even if it sucks ass, please make it, because that's like why we're alive, you know. To create is to be human, and especially in the time right now where people are using fucking AI, passing it off as art, you know, we need people to make real, genuine art more than ever. I've learned that hoping for an audience and hoping for external validation isn't the answer. Even though I kind of already knew that it wasn't, I still hoped and I still thought that in the end it would save me from all the problems I was having in terms of my insecurity and lack of confidence artistically. And in the past, I have created things that went unnoticed. And if I hadn't made those, I wouldn't be here. So my goal with Seeking Scars and every single other project that I make going forward is fully I just want to make something I care about. I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's bad. I don't care if anybody reads it but me. I'm making something for me. I'm sorry I got a little bit rambly at the end here, and I hope I don't come across as too preachy. I'm really trying not to. I'm still very new to this whole YouTube process, and I'm trying to find a good balance between being myself and saying things that I think matter, and also being fun and being silly and entertaining and also helpful. And then, I don't know, I'm still figuring myself out. And if you're listening this far, I appreciate you so much. It really means the world to me that you're here. And I hope that I'm of some use to you and to the 2 people who I owe $1 trillion to. If you've made it this far, can we, I don't know. Can we double it and give it to the next person?